Good day, YouTube. I am Southern Wolverine, and this is Rome 2 Total War Multiplayer. This here is the general of my Seleucid army on top of his mighty Indian war elephant, armored for your protection. I also have a cavalry force of 2 Hellenic cataphracts, 2 Azat knights. I have 2 different groups of skirmishers. One is these light peltists, 3 of them. I'm sorry, 2 of them. The other is 3 eastern slingers. And then my main infantry force consists of what is a fairly normal build for me: 4 thorax swords, 2 thurio spears guarding my flanks, and then 4 thorax pikes forming my front line. My opponent in this battle is Patrick, who I've played a number of 2v2s with, and he is commanding Rome. Alright, his cavalry is hidden at the moment. He does have this unit of elephants hidden out here. Auxiliary African war elephants, or rather just African elephants. His force has a leading element of 4 of these auxiliary Syrian archers, and then lots and lots of heavy infantry. Mix of eagle cohorts, and I think there's some, yeah, there are some avocado cohorts in here as well. I believe he's got something like 9 units of heavy infantry. So that's something I've got to watch out for, because they will definitely outclass my thorax swords. And there are more of them. So he's got 1 unit of course, his legatus, and his cavalry, as I said at the moment, is hidden from me. So he did spot my 2 units of Azat Knights as they were moving down into this forest, and so I'm moving here to try to maintain the high ground, and I'm hoping that my archers can significantly damage, or my slingers rather, can significantly damage his Syrian archers enough that my 2 units of light peltists can still be running around and damaging these heavy infantry and potentially getting shots on these elephants and all the things you want your peltists to do. Fortunately for Patrick, your cavalry can't hurt your own units. Otherwise, this would have been most unfortunate for these Syrian archers as these elephants are running across. This is sort of a recon in force. So these guys are going to move into this forest and attempt to drive my Azat Knights out. I was sort of hoping that these elephants would follow through and actually try to attack them, which is why I moved these 2 units of light peltists with their large amounts of ammunition with pretty good damage to go try to mess up those elephants. But he pulled them back, and they're just going to hold for a while at the edge of this forest. Looks like they're covered in the blood of their own guys there, even though they didn't actually kill anybody. I wonder if they actually take hit points off of friendly units. I've got to believe that they don't, but I'm not honestly sure about that. So again, I'm trying to shift left, and the idea here was to try to get the skirmishers to the point where they could focus 3-on-1. But that's going to be tough to do. These Syrian archers have the same 150 range that my Eastern slingers do. Got better armor, better morale. They just outclass my skirmishers, even though slingers will normally beat archers. He has high-end slingers, and or high-end archers rather, and I have mid-range slingers. So I don't really think he'll hold out all that well. I did try to run an interference attack with my Azat Knights on his Syrian archers, but as these heavy infantry move up, I don't really want to get these guys engaged head-to-head with all these avocado cohorts. So still a skirmish battle just going on for the moment. And now I'm going to try to move up my skirmishers while I've got a chance here. See, my skirmishers are definitely losing this fight. I'm trying to get these light peltists into the fight, because if they can get in here and start throwing spears onto these guys, they can do some pretty good damage, actually. See, they got some immediate kills on these guys, which is pretty good, because these guys hadn't taken any hits to that point. So they got through all their hit points, through the shields, and good armor, and they're starting to wear these guys down. Now they just take that javelin throw in return, and the archers are trying to kill them now. But it is drawing this avocado cohort out of position for my elephants to try to come down and smack them. No, oh, I see. I missed it. But his 3 units of cavalry hidden in these woods. He's got 3 units of these legionary cavalry, or I'm sorry, auxiliary cavalry, and yep, all auxiliary cavalry. So they came out and launched a strike on my flank, caught a hold of some of my skirmishers, and some of my swords, and Thurio spears come out here to intercept. And I got caught looking at this fight, so I'm taking my time reacting to this. See, as soon as my elephants came down, they started taking flaming arrows. So they did panic. They still wrecked this unit of Evocati cohort, though. Unfortunately, for me, they're panicking in the right direction. And they're just kind of circling back and forth, running over these advanced units of Evocati. So this isn't quite what I wanted to happen with my elephants. If I could have got them into these heavy infantry, kept them moving, no spears to stop me, that could have been brutal. He also brought these African elephants out to confront me, and they went out of control, both from fighting my elephants and from the missile fire I was directing at them, and now they're starting to run down some of his own Syrian archers. So, yeah, those elephants, not actually the best units for fighting other elephants. It seems like it should be that way, but it's really not. Yeah, and here, I see my units got all disarrayed as I was trying to get them into this fight against the cavalry. I just had my cavalry, some of them run around behind. I'm hoping to get some hammer and anvil attacks, maybe get a shot at this general, get a shot at some of these skirmishers. So that's what these Hellenic cataphracts are trying to do anyway, is run around behind and just look for an opportunity to do some damage. Now, while I'm microing elsewhere, this Legatus is going to come down and attack my cataphracts. But even though I didn't get the charge, I'm not so upset about that fight. I still have a pretty significant advantage. Having more men with more health, better attack, all that stuff. Not feeling too bad about that. Now he's rushing his Eagle cohorts here into the fray, and they're running headlong into my Thorax pikes, so they're not going to meet a whole lot of success in this battle. The Javelin volley's doing some damage, but again, the sword's coming into the front of pikes, and we're holding just fine along this line. So as long as I can keep these other swords from flanking me, I feel at this point like I'm going to be okay. Now my elephants are starting to wear out, but they've done quite a bit of damage and thrown this area into disarray, so I'm okay. I guess with that, I would have liked to do more. Yep, see, there they go. Going down. Too bad. But they're still kind of messing things up over here. So these flaming arrows aren't actually doing all that much damage to them. It's just kind of keeping them panicking. Or not panicking, but running amok. See, that last elephant now running again through these guys. And still having a morale effect on these guys. Now it does run into my own pikes, unfortunately. But it's not too bad. Lost a few of them to that. But in any case, the pike line's holding. I got a lot of swords on my flank. Now holding out against these Eagle cohort. Now let's get zoom out again to get an idea what's going on in this battle. So now the heavy infantry is mostly engaged. There's one unit here that was trying to run down my Hellenic cataphracts, and one unit that was fighting skirmishes and things over here. And they're lost sort of in the excitement. My cavalry's now coming down to try to help out in these fights. One unit slips through where those heavy infantry were destroyed and is going to come down smashing into these Syrian archers as my flanking force also arrives at the same time. And that's going to basically knock this whole archer force out of the fight. Meanwhile, this force, which was fighting against my spears, my Thurio spears, and got that one unit of Thorax pike flanked, was looking in pretty good shape until these pikes got turned. And now there's Hellenic cataphracts here poised to get a rear attack on them. And there's still one Evocati cohort down here fighting against, or rather an Eagle cohort, fighting against an awful lot of my men. So, I feel like the early stage of this battle was slightly in my favor, not hugely in my favor, because my elephants were doing more damage than they, you might have expected while they were all panicking. So even though he was winning the skirmish fight, my elephants sort of helped even that out. And if Patrick had waited a bit longer, perhaps, to launch that infantry attack, long enough for all of his elements to strike at once from different directions and try to flank my pikes, The fact that he lost a number of units on the front of my pikes, just like these reinforcement troops are now fighting the front of my pikes, who are reinforced by these thorax swords to keep them off the flank. I feel like if he'd sent all those heavy infantry at once, I would have been hard pressed to hold them back. And once again, though, my cavalry was quite useful in running around behind and reacting to things and doing lots of damage. So the elephants, despite having been utterly destroyed, still had 425 kills. And I feel like they could have they had a lot more potential than that. So that was a decent strategy, actually, trying to draw the elephants into an attack and hit them with flaming arrows to panic them. It's just at that point I would have not sent any more troops into their vicinity if I were Patrick. Um, my cavalry force all did pretty good. Other than this one unit, they all had quite a few kills. My skirmishers, kind of a bust. The Eastern Slingers mostly just drew skirmish fire, which wasn't a total loss because it meant those arrows weren't hitting my pikes. You can see the unit of pikes that got flanked got pretty well thrashed, but it still had a decent number of kills before it got surrounded. So the pikes were able to do quite a bit of damage to those Evocati. And then the thorax swords did their job, not much more than that. And the Thurio spears did pretty much what I expect Thurio spears to do against heavy infantry, which is die painfully. But again, they were just holding a flank long enough for me to turn more forces to fight that direction. So in that sense, they did what I needed them to do in that situation. As unfortunate as it was to send over 300 men into a situation that they could not possibly win. And Patrick's army real quick. Of course, the Legatus, you don't expect them to do a lot of damage, and they didn't, especially when they were charging Hellenic cataphracts. The Elephants, big fat zero. Actually, he probably did more damage to his own archers on the out of control action than he did to me, because he didn't do anything to me. So by charging them into my elephants and into my skirmishers, they also lost control and didn't have a chance to do anything. Like I said, elephants, not the best counter for elephants. You really want to use something else. Massed spears, missile fire, you know, definitely not sword units and definitely not another elephant unit. Spear cavalry, maybe, if you really need to throw something in there. Still not necessarily ideal, though. And you can tell which of these, this Evocati and this Eagle cohort, got flanks on me. Everyone else was fighting me to the front. And these two Evocati were probably the ones that got totally spanked by my out-of-control elephants. But in any case, that was definitely an interesting battle. Thanks and good game to Patrick O'Brien for playing with me. If you've liked this video, please do like the video, comment, and subscribe. And this is Southern Wolverine signing off.